Hello and welcome to another episode of Ask Your Representative, the show where we talk to local officials in the Clarkson area. I'm your host, Trevor and I'm from the Clarkson Independence District Library. We're really happy to welcome today Cari Neubeck, who is the clerk for Independence Township. Welcome to ITV, Cari.
Good morning, Trevor. Thank you for having me.
We really love that you're making your debut with Independence Television right here on Ask Your Rep, so welcome.
Thank you.
So there's a lot going on right now. Obviously, we have an election coming up, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But I wondered if you might just, kind of reintroduce yourself to our viewers who maybe haven't met you before, and talk a little bit about, your professional history and really kind of how you came to work in local government.
Certainly. I actually started in Independence. It was my first municipality that I've ever worked at back in 1992. Worked for Independence from 92 to 2004. And then I left and went to Macomb County and worked in Shelby Township as their elections coordinator until 2014. I was eager to come back to Oakland County, be back home where I lived, and most recently was working for Oakland Township as their deputy clerk until I started December of 15 there, and then just left there before I came here and was appointed in July of 19.
Awesome. So I think, maybe the duties of the clerk beyond elections aren't maybe the most familiar to everybody. Would you mind sharing a little bit about what exactly the clerk does in local government, including elections? But I know there's, probably a lot of other things maybe we're just really not familiar with.
Certainly. Elections is probably the biggest part of my job, doing state, federal, and local elections. We also are the custodian for all the records of the township. We're often referred to as the keeper of the records. We administer oaths, licensing for solicitors, waste haulers, special events, and we also prepare the meeting packets, agendas for our meetings that are on Tuesdays, twice a month, and then any documentation and paperwork that's done after the meetings that's necessary as follow-up.
Okay. I know that in doing my own genealogy research, I spent a lot of time looking at records and things like that from the township. So you guys really do kind of have everything as it relates to the township.
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about our election. So we have a primary coming up on March the 10th, and I want you to share with everybody again the big changes that were made in the end of 2018 to how people can vote here in Michigan.
Yes, in November of 18, Proposal 18.3 was passed, which one of the big changes was to take away needing to select a reason to vote absentee. So now you can vote for no reason at all. Prior to that, there were, I believe, 5 or 6 different reasons that you had to select in order to gain an absentee ballot, which was you were appointed an election inspector. You had to be over 60. It was against the tenets of your religion. You were going to be outside of the community the entire time on election day, and now there's no reason whatsoever. So that's been a great gain for clerks of municipalities in order to promote and gain more absentee ballots.
And it's just fantastically more convenient for those of us.
Why not?
Absolutely.
Who wouldn't want to vote from their couch and their
Sure.
slippers? Yes. Than to have to go stand in line possibly and wait some time,
Absolutely.
on election day, and that hassle. We're all living busy lives, and when you do have 5 minutes to drink your cup of coffee and go over your ballot and vote it, that's so much easier than.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about kind of the machinations of how that actually works. So you say you're a voter and you're just learning that you can vote absentee for any reason. What should be their first step?
They need to first fill out an application for an absentee ballot,
and where would they get one of those from?
They can get them from our website. They're also on the state's website, michigan.gov/vote.
And so if they request one, it's going to come in the mail. And it's kind of a two-sided thing here. Let me flip over the back. And you can mail it in. Obviously, it makes itself into an envelope. What kind of information do they need to give you on this form?
What's specific to this election is you have to choose a ballot type.
Okay.
So you'll have 3 options to choose, either a Republican, a Democratic, or a nonpartisan ballot. So you do have to choose a reason, or I'm sorry, choose a ballot type, and then we also have to have your signature. You always have to sign the application. So once we have that turned into our office, then we will process and mail you an absentee ballot. Our turnaround is within less than 24 hours.
So I know you've had some voters maybe share a concern that if they select a party that's on here, that means that they're bound to that party, or they're registered, with that party permanently, or you're making a mark of this. Does that really ever go beyond this form for that particular election?
No, it's only specific to a presidential primary.
Okay.
So they would not have to tie, for say, the August or November election to the same party that they chose for this election, and nor will they have to choose a party for August or November. It is exclusive to presidential primaries.
Excellent. And even on this form, I'm seeing that if you don't actually want to select a party, you can even choose a ballot without the presidential primary, because there are other things that
Correct.
are on,
We have
on the election.
other contests. Yes, that's correct.
And so they fill out this form. Is this something that they have to fill out just once, or is it something that they have to do every single time they want to vote absentee?
Michigan election law does indicate that you have to apply every election for an absentee ballot. We do have a procedure in place where you can be placed on our permanent absentee voter list, which guarantees that you'll always receive an application to be mailed to you. You won't have to call or stop in. We'll always mail you an application. But you do have to, every election, continue to fill it out, return it so that we could send you a ballot. So that we know that you are there, it is you. We check your signature against our database to make sure that it is you for security purposes. And but should you receive an application for an election that you might not care to vote in, you don't have to return it. You can simply discard it. And also, if you would like to vote at the precinct on election day, that too. This does not mean that you have to only vote absentee.
Okay. So you can change your mind if you receive it in the mail and you're like, you know what, I really want to go in. I really feel more comfortable with it.
Absolutely.
Okay. So if there's a voter watching and they want to vote absentee for as long as they live in the township, is there a box to check on the form?
I don't think on this form we do not have it on there. We don't actually need a specific form. You can call the office and ask to be put on the list. You can email us a request. Stop in. So it doesn't actually have to be a specific form.
Okay. But there is a way, if you're watching, if you want to always receive an absentee application, to receive that in the mail. You don't have to necessarily ask for that every single time, but you'll always have to complete it and sign it and return it. Okay. So let's talk about the absentee ballot that comes in the mail, because there have been some changes to the way the envelopes look. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, the envelopes have changed. They've used to be
up here.
Now this is the mailing envelope, the outside window envelope that your ballot will come in, so it will be blue. Voters that have voted for many years were used to seeing a manila colored envelope that was a little bit longer and not as tall. Some great changes have been made to hopefully make these stand out with our postal service and to alert voters because it has some great captioning on the front that lets you know it's an official absent voter ballot.
Excellent. So when the blue envelope comes in the mail, make sure that you snag that. It's not junk mail. It's not someone trying to tell you. It's not someone trying to sell you something.
That's for sure.
All right, Cari. So once they open it, what are they going to see?
When they open it, will be a return envelope, which is a green and white envelope, and inside that will be this manila secrecy sleeve that he was showing you.
The manila sleeve is this.
Your ballot will actually be in there, and that is to, of course, to keep the secrecy of your vote as it's processed in the absentee counting board. So once you voted your ballot, make sure you check both sides. This election, the ballot does have a proposal on the back side to make sure that you vote both sides. Instructions are provided to the voter on the secrecy sleeve on how to vote the ballot. You'll put your voted ballot back in the secrecy sleeve, put it back into the green return envelope, and there's an signature section. It's very important that you make sure that you return your ballot with your signature on it. Otherwise, it won't be counted on election day.
So what are the ways that they can get their completed absentee ballot that has been signed and sealed and is in the secrecy sleeve? How do they get that back to the township?
The ballot can be dropped off in our drop box. You can mail it back. It's 55-cent postage. Or you can come in during election day, or during office hours and deliver it then.
Okay, so part of the proposal that was passed is that you can register to vote and you can vote on election day, which you've never been able to do before. You've never been able to actually register to vote on that day. So that obviously puts a lot of pressure on the office if people have decided that day. I think we have a couple weeks from at least the time of taping until the election. What do you recommend that people do to try to really avoid the line on election day if maybe they haven't decided yet whether they want to vote or register to vote?
I think most importantly, they need to verify their registration beforehand. That's
Okay.
a great thing to do now. Michigan.gov/vote, they can verify their registration, their polling location, should they want to go to the precinct, and they can actually track their absentee ballot to see if
wow.
it's been mailed, if
didn't
it's
know
been
that.
received. Yeah, it's a great tool, so that you know that you actually mailed your ballot back, that we have a lot of snowbirds out of town that have mailed from various states, that their ballot is actually back and safe in our hands. So I would recommend that's something they can do way ahead of time. Starting tomorrow through election day, if you were to register to vote in your new community, if you aren't registered currently, that does have to take place at the clerk's office.
Okay.
Prior to tomorrow, you could have registered online with Secretary of State, of course, at a Secretary of State branch office. So
Excellent. I'm a little curious about, just kind of how it works on election day. You're obviously very busy. This is probably the biggest day of the year in the clerk's office. Who actually does the job of counting ballots at the local level? I understand there's something called the counting board.
Yes.
That you oversee, who actually does all of the work that day. Can you just
Sure.
share with voters a little bit about that?
we have an absentee counting board that's appointed, by our election commission. We'll have, for this election, we will have 5 teams of 2 that will actually process the absentee ballots. We have 2 chair people and 2 support persons as well. They are sequestered. They're located in the boardroom of Town Hall, and they will be processing over, probably at that point, upwards of 5,000 absentee ballots.
Wow.
So the ballots will not be open until Election Day. I've got the absentee counting board will be arriving around 9 o'clock, and then they'll process up through 8 p.m., which is the close of polls. Ballots will continue to come in throughout the day because voters will drop off their ballot at the last minute. We get them from the mail, and we actually do a later run to the post office. We give them a call in the afternoon to see if there's any other ballots that may have been sorted late, so that we can make sure we get all the voters' votes in by
great.
8 p.m.
That's great. So, with only a couple of weeks left, have you seen an uptick in people who are voting absentee because it's so convenient now?
I have. It's not been as big of a turnout. Presidential primary typically isn't as big as the November election, but I was looking at our numbers from 2016 from that presidential primary. We're up 53%
Wow.
from what voted then.
That's
yes.
great.
Yes.
I'm so glad people are taking advantage of this really incredibly easy opportunity to vote at home
I know,
and to
why
just
not?
mail it in. It's so convenient. I love it.
For sure.
So just, maybe to recap, for everybody watching, be sure to look for the blue envelope in the mail if you've submitted an absentee application. Make sure you get those in soon. You want to give the clerk's office as much time as possible to process your request.
That's right.
And we look forward to seeing you on
Yes.
Election Day. Thanks a lot for joining us, Cari.
Thank you.
And we also want to thank you for watching this episode of Ask Your Representative. If you have a suggestion for someone that we should speak to in a future episode, please call me at the library at 248-625-2212. And remember to vote in the primary and the election in November. Thanks for watching.